Exclusive reporting tonight that the president's written answers to Robert Mueller included the president saying he was not told about two key topics: the 2016 Trump Tower meeting between some of his top aides and Russians in New York, or any connections with WikiLeaks, anything along those lines. What do you make of this?
And this matches what his public statements have been about this. He's answered these questions publicly. Of course, now it's different because he's in this situation where he's answering prosecutors, investigators. So apparently he said to the best of his recollection, he doesn't remember any conversations about WikiLeaks. He doesn't remember being informed about this Trump Tower meeting. But we do know that these are the questions that are central to the Mueller investigation. And we also know that he is also in line with what Roger Stone has said publicly too. So, I mean, they are matching in terms of what their descriptions of these meetings and recollections of their meetings are. But listen, I mean, it's a different thing when you tell this to prosecutors versus saying it to the press.
Susan, listen to how the president and the Secretary of State, the former CIA director, Mike Pompeo, have spoken about WikiLeaks in the past. Listen to this.
WikiLeaks, I love WikiLeaks. This WikiLeaks stuff is unbelievable. It tells you the inner heart. You got to read it.
They want to distract us from WikiLeaks. It's been amazing what's coming out on WikiLeaks.
It's time to call out WikiLeaks for what it really is: a non-state hostile intelligence service often abetted by state actors like Russia.
What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's pretty remarkable, and I do think that replaying those tapes in light of what we know now about potential communications between Roger Stone, Jerome Corsi, and Julian Assange really does sort of illustrate potentially how serious this situation might be with the president. Donald Trump openly saying, "I love WikiLeaks," openly calling for the Russians to hack Hillary Clinton's emails. This is not information that was not known at the time. Maybe you hadn't had a CIA director come out and use those particular words, but the U.S. intelligence community and U.S. government had been warning about WikiLeaks, about the role they were playing, about Julian Assange's connections to the Russian government and Russian intelligence for years. And so it's not as though these statements were made from some sort of naive point of view in which nobody knew what WikiLeaks really was. All of the available information to Donald Trump and frankly to Mike Pompeo, whenever he made supportive statements of WikiLeaks during the campaign, were available at that time. And either it was just incredibly irresponsible and sort of coincidental, or it really does signal something pretty nefarious.
David, I want to put up on the screen once again what the president retweeted earlier today, this image of these 11 Obama officials, two former presidents, including President Bill Clinton and President Obama, with the words, "Now that Russia collusion is a proven lie, when do the trials for treason begin?" You've seen that, and our viewers have now seen it. What's your reaction to when the president is accusing, by retweeting this image, these high-ranking former officials of treason?
Yeah. Well, look, it gets exhausting being outraged, and all I would say is that the Russian, this is Russian emulation, is what it is. Welcome to Russia. This is how totalitarian states work, where political opponents of the president of the United States are threatened or depicted as outlaws, and it's completely consistent with the modus operandi of the president. He has no respect for institutions, laws, rules, norms. He pursues his self-interest wherever it leads him. And part of it is to run this ongoing propaganda campaign through Twitter, through his public comments. And this is just an extreme example of it.
In this jail cell, Samantha, the former director of national intelligence, James Clapper, two former attorneys general, James Comey, the president's own deputy attorney general, Rod Rosenstein, he's behind bars in this image involving treason as well. What kind of message internationally does that send as far as U.S. national security is concerned?
Well, there are a lot of my former mentors in there and a lot of my friends in that picture. And a lot of those people were targeted with pipe bombs just a few weeks ago. So what the president is doing is not only trying ostensibly to direct a law enforcement investigation, which he's done multiple times, he is knowingly retweeting content that in the past has led to an attempted political assassination campaign. This kind of conspiracy theory, this call for imprisoning former Obama officials, as well as Rod Rosenstein in this case, is an active security risk to everybody in that picture. And a president should want to protect all Americans, regardless of what position they may have held in a previous administration.
Susie, you used to work at the National Security Agency. When you see this image, including former top U.S. intelligence officials behind bars with the word treason, what goes through your mind?
I agree with everything Sam had to say. I think it goes to this notion of what is a pre-political commitment. We're supposed to agree to a certain set of values, a certain set of shared beliefs that come before party. If you listen to what Barack Obama said about George W. Bush, the individual with whom he disagreed intensely, he said, first of all, George W. Bush is a really good man. And so the notion that we are first and foremost Americans, and then second, Republicans and Democrats, that is the piece that Donald Trump just can't appear to sort of get through his head. And that is the piece in which he is fundamentally out of step, not just with sort of members of his own party, not just with Democrats, but really with the American people.
It comes the day after he was tweeting all these awful things about the U.S. Justice Department.
That's right. And it comes as he is not trusting the CIA on their assessment of the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. It also comes as he's also saying that the assessments of his own administration and scientists about climate change. I mean, this idea that all of these institutions, if they don't agree with Donald Trump, if they don't match what his gut tells him, then they should not be paid attention to. In this case, should be jailed. It also comes just a few days after a story that says he actually tried to actively see if the Justice Department could go after Hillary Clinton, could go after
James Comey. Does he really believe this, or is it simply about discrediting the Mueller investigation? He's apparently very, very worried that Mueller's going to come out with some damning information.
Well, I mean, the thing is, he has been consistent about this, right? I mean, at his rallies, there has been this consistent chant about lock her up, meaning Hillary Clinton. So, and he obviously tried to see if they could actually go after Hillary Clinton. So the idea that this is just, sort of a Twitter fantasy, it seems like he wanted to put the force of his administration behind making some of this stuff happen.
You say Twitter, but these are presidential statements that he's making on Twitter, and it's going out to his, 50 or 60 million followers. Everybody stick around. There's more breaking news coming up, including President Trump's angry new broadside comparing Robert Mueller's special counsel probe to McCarthyism. Also coming up, new developments in the case involving a woman accused of being an agent for the Russians and who was in contact with top Republicans and officials of the National Rifle Association.